The Plaquemine Parish Council, April the 11th, 2019 meeting is now called to order at 1:45. We had the prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance during the port meeting. We have a roll call. Machines are open. Let the record show that 8 are here. Mr. Black is absent. We'll move to item A, executive session. Is there any?
No, sir.
Okay. We move to item B, proclamation. Is there any? We'll move to item C, status report by the parish president, Mr. Lapine.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, council, audience. Today, I attended the Plaquemines Parish Annual Senior Day that was hosted by the District Attorney, Charles Balley, at the Dave Van Community Center. It was a good time by all and enjoyed hanging around with some of the our senior citizens. The Port Sulphur YMCA will hold a breakfast with the Easter Bunny this Saturday from 9 to 11. Please go out and help the YMCA. Our Plaquemines Cleanup Day is scheduled for April 20th. It's from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. and it's parish-wide, so we still are looking for help throughout the whole parish. Michelle Epley is one of the committee founders. The judge, his court, the sheriff's office, the administration, and we would hope that some of you council members could help us out too. We have our last meeting on Tuesday, and it is set for next Saturday. So please join us in to help clean up Plaquemines Parish. I want to send a congratulations out to a young man in South Plaquemines. His name is Truce Williams. He will sign a letter of intent to play basketball at a college of his choice. We do get a lot of these athletes that come out of Plaquemines Parish that sign college scholarships, but I just wanted to mention his name because of his accolades and what he's done for Plaquemines Parish. And also, as far back as I can remember, I don't think there's ever been a distinct honor of this young man. He was invited to play in the McDonald's All-American game, and that says a lot for the young man's talent. And I just want to recognize him. He does have a National Signing Day, April 23rd, and I'm hoping Mr. LaFrance or Mr. Blank, whatever district that is, we maybe do a proclamation next meeting honoring him. You know, wonderful young man. Mr. Marvelous Williams passed away, and I don't know if any of you are familiar with Mr. Herbert. He is was the Justice of the Peace on the East Bank for 22 years. He was a retired gentleman who drove on the bus for many years with the school board. So his services are Sunday night and Monday morning. So our condolences go out to the Williams family. And last but not least, I would like to take this time to introduce the council to our new Plaquemines Parish Economic Development Director in Tourism. He will start on April 22nd. It's a young man that I think will do a fabulous job for Plaquemines Parish. His name is Keith Espadron. He's sitting in the audience. I'm going to ask him to come to the mic and just introduce himself and maybe tell him a little bit about himself. And you get to know this, Keith.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, President Lapine, for that introduction. My name is Keith Espadron. I'm pretty sure most are familiar with me. I've been out in the public for a while, but I'm just very excited and privileged to have the opportunity to work with PPG. And I'm excited to come on board and hit the ground running and helping our parish develop its economy. Like President Lapine and I spoke about, we want everyone to know that we're open for business, and we'll absolutely, from day one, we will hit the ground running, and we will work. I can tell you that I will work my tail off to make sure we do everything we can to develop our economy and to expand our tourism. It's a wonderful place that has a lot to offer, and I'm very excited. Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And I explained to Keith that we wear many hats in this administration, and he will be Executive Director of Economic Director and Tourism. So we're going to wear many hats, and we're going to make this work. So with that, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my address.
Thank you, Mr. President, for that report. Is there any comments from the table? Any comments from the audience? Then we proceed. Oh, Mr. Lawrence?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Warren Lawrence, 120 Timber Canal, Myrtle Grove. I just asked the president if he would make if he knows anything on the results of what happened in Myrtle Grove Monday with the flooding conditions. All the streets were closed and everything. And I did call him that afternoon, and he said he didn't even know about it. And I want to thank Mr. LaFrance. He did come out. He appeared. He came back the next day. And after 15 years, it's the first time I've had my councilman contact me and say, "Are y'all all right?" and come out and look at the situation. And we did have and I don't know if he can mention it, maybe Mr. LaFrance will to him, but we had a meeting with CPRA that morning. And Mr. LaFrance was there. I did invite the administration to have someone there with them also. But they are going to look at our problem on what the diversion can do to us. And in my opinion, what they gave us, that was a very bleak situation. But they're coming out to do evaluations, and I'm hoping that the parish engineering department and what other departments get with them, because they're putting out money to survey our properties, survey your properties, the streets and everything. If you need something, get with them while they're out there. Let them pay the buck. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence, for them comments. Is there any more comments?
Number 2, bids and advertisements. A resolution authorizing the disposal of an office trailer, serial number BG06NC143145, located at 114 Gilly Lane in Boothville.
I'll offer. Second.
We have an offer. We have a motion by Mr. Gui, seconded by Mr. Corey. Is there any comments or questions from the board? Hearing none, the machines are open. The vote is 8-0.
Or not to be. B, a resolution authorizing the purchasing agent to advertise for and dispose of surplus vehicles and equipment on an as-is basis through public auction conducted by Henderson Auctions.
Need a motion? We have a motion by Mr. Corey Albro, seconded by Ms. Trudy Newberry. Is there any questions or comments from the table? Any questions or comments from the audience? The machines are open.
Councilmember Arborough? Okay.
The vote is 8-0.
When you attach that list, it makes it easy.
Yes.
Number 3, beer and liquor licenses.
Mr.
I
Pathalli.
have none.
Mr. Albro.
None. Yes, I have one. The item C, resolution to establish records retention schedule, is still being worked on by the administration, I assume? Yes.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I met with 2 directors already. I have 2 more directors in their departments to meet too. I know it's slow, but we're making progress.
Okay, I'll defer item C.
We're on beer and liquor licenses.
sorry. Yeah. I don't have any liquor license.
Okay,
Where'd that come
I have one. It's Miss Eldona Manuel. It's for a turkey shoot, Diamond Park. It's on April the 21st. Ms. Newberry? Mr. Blank?
None.
Mr. Konovich? Okay. We'll move to, is there any deferral? Okay, all right. Okay, I offered it.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Roussel. Any questions or comments from the table? Any questions or comments from the audience? Hearing none, the machines are open.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you. The vote is 8-0. We'll move to deferrals. Any deferrals or withdrawals at this time?
I have 1E, deferred.
That's 6E.
6E.
Mr. Albro?
Yes, I have two, 6G and 6N. Deferral.
Mr. Gui?
None.
Mr. Roussel?
6C.
6C?
C. Where's the core defer?
That's all
Ms.
right.
Trudy?
Yes, 6P and 6Q.
Hold on a minute.
I have none. Say it again.
Mr. Blank?
I have none. None.
Mr. Konovich?
Excuse me, Councilman LaFrance, could you defer item B?
6B?
Q.
Yes.
6B?
6B as in boy.
B. Okay.
That's for Mr. Black. Okay, we'll go over the agenda again on the deferrals. 6B as in boy, 6C as in cat, 6E as in everybody, 6D as in goat, 6N as in necessary, 6B as in pool boy, 6Q as in quit.
That's a good point.
Okay, we can move on.
Number 4A, building permits, construction permits. Would you like to take 1 and 2 in globo?
Yes, ma'am.
4A1, Blocks LLC application number 2018-743 dated October 31st, 2018. Install 2 4-inch and 2 2-inch pipelines for the East Black Bay 6 Prospect, Main Pass Area Revised, Block 23, Councilmember Bartholomew. And number 2, Fugro USA Land, Inc., application number 2018-326, dated May 4th, 2018, drill 3 to 5 soil borings for Entergy Horizontal Directional Drill Project, crossing under the Mississippi River, Belle Chase to Braithwaite. Council members Bartholomew, Black, and Gui.
I offer, Councilman Gui also, that second, you can get off, I'll second it. And the question is that the drilling, they are in compliance, if I'm not mistaken, right, with the Corps of being able to drill. So it doesn't impact that because of the status that we are with the water, the river levee. So we can go, they can go.
We have a motion by Mr. Bartholomew, seconded by Mr. Gui. Is there any questions or comments from the table? Any questions or comments from the audience? Hearing none, the machines are open. And item passed 8-0. Oh, I'm sorry, 7-1 abstain. Move to the next item.
Introduction of ordinances and resolutions.
Did we take both of those in global just now?
Have one, an ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvement plan repairs Devant Pool Project and Port Sulphur YMCA Pool Project, and otherwise to provide respect thereto.
Mr. Albright.
That's all, Mr. Chairman.
I have 3. The first one on behalf of Councilmember Black. An ordinance to amend the 2019 General Fund manpower structure and operating expenditure budget, Flood Control Department, and otherwise provide with respect thereto. An ordinance to amend the 2019 manpower structure, firefighting fund, ambulances department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance authorizing the acceptance of donations from Homeland Security, Emergency Preparedness Department, and to amend the General Fund 2019 operating revenue and expenditure budgets, Homeland Security, Emergency Preparedness Department, and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Mr. Gui?
I have one, an ordinance to amend 2019 Road Maintenance Fund revenue and operating expenditure budgets, Road Maintenance Public Right-of-Way Department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Mr. Roussel?
None.
I have one. Ordinance by the Plaquemine Parish Council as in on the behalf of the West Bank Levee District to acquire new perpetual flood protection levee, flood wall easement, new perpetual flood protection levee, flood wall and drainage ditch easement with perpetual drainage ditch easement and new temporary work area easement in certain portion of land in Plaquemine Parish, Louisiana, by donation, purchase, appropriation, and expropriation to construct the New Orleans to Venice NOV-NF-W-05A1 Rosetta Seat to Myrtle Grove, Plaquemine Parish, Louisiana, for levee, flood wall, drainage, flood excess, and hurricane protection purpose, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Ms. Newberry?
None.
Mr. Blank? Mr. Conover?
I have two. An ordinance to amended to readopt Section 4 Ordinance Number 142, the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance of Plaquemine Parish as amended, and the Comprehensive Zoning District Map therein adopted by reference number 2018311 dated June 5th, 2018. An ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvement plan, repairs Buras YMCA pool project, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. That's it.
Thank you.
6A1, an ordinance to establish residential parking Zone A on both sides of Upsilon Street, Iota Street, Lambda Street, and on Omega Street commencing at its intersection with Iota Street running in a southerly direction to its dead end, to establish a penalty for the violation thereof, to authorize the parish president to have the appropriate signs installed and issue residential parking permits, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to pass over this and yield the floor to Councilmember Bartholomew so we can get through with the items that you have regarding poor deeds.
Sure.
Okay.
That's item F.
Okay, I need a motion.
No, we're just going to revert to F. Go to F.
Oh, okay.
7F.
Oh, okay.
7F, an ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan for the replacement Point Elijah.
No, 7F.
7F.
Oh, 7F, I'm sorry. District 7, nope, hold on, I'm getting there.
Porty's update.
Thank you, Port Eads update and presentation.
Yes. We have two gentlemen with the proposal for the possibility of taking the contract to take over Porty's, and they will do a presentation to this council and to the audience. We have met with them periodically throughout the last couple of weeks, so now they're ready to do the presentation.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Please say your name and your residence, please.
Tony Bruce, 22130 Cheney Road, Zachary, Louisiana. We appreciate y'all giving us time to make this presentation and tell you a little bit about myself. I'm originally from Lafourche Parish, was in the offshore supply boat business for about 20 years, operated as many as 28 vessels all over the Gulf of Mexico, from Corpus Christi, Texas, all the way to Mobile, Alabama. And I sold my business, and then I moved to Zachary and built a golf course in Zachary and got into the real estate business. And myself and my two boys have developed a lot of real estate in Baton Rouge for the past 20 years, probably several $100 million of real estate. And I'm an avid fisherman, and I spent a lot of time at Port Eads for the last several years, and I was there when y'all were constructing the new facility and got a chance to watch it. And after it went into operation, I spent some time down there, not as an employee, but I was kind of as a fisherman and helping out, did some bait fishing and things like that, fished a few rodeos. Then I met one of the gentlemen that's here today that I'm going to introduce in a second, Mr. Walter Heacock, who's a local guy from Venice, knows all the waters and everything. I met Walter, and we became good friends and fished together. And, Walter calls me one day, he says, I think that the Port Eads facility is going to come up. The people who's operating it might let it go. I said, Walter, that's interesting. So one thing left to another, and we're here today. And what I'd like to do at this time is introduce the people that are with me that are going to be part of our team. But I'd like to say there's several people who are not here today. We've put together, I think y'all going to find a real impressive group of men and women who are going to take Port Eads and move it to a whole new level. We're kind of calling it the comeback of Port Eads, and I don't want to steal all of my friend David's thunder because he's going to make the presentation. But at this time, I'd like to introduce Angela. Angela's going to say a few words, Angela.
Good afternoon, Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. A little bit about myself. I'm a former resident of Assumption Parish. I grew up on the waterways, Pierre Park Bayou, Lafourche, St. Tammany, and then I joined the Marine Corps. I'm a retired 25-year Marine Corps officer, a lot of leadership and logistics experience. And since I retired 5 years ago, I've been running a nonprofit for veterans. Excuse me. We do a lot of veterans outreach. I've been a veterans activist, and we're going to have a big part of getting veterans involved in the Port Eads comeback and retreat. And we've got several other nonprofits on board with us.
Miss Angela, may I ask your last name, please?
I'm sorry, Lawrence, and you need my address too, don't you?
Yes.
40096 Pelican Point Parkway, Gonzales, Louisiana, 70737.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Please state your name and your address, please.
Good evening, Walter Heathcock, 140 Dead Man's Lane, Boothville, Louisiana.
Dead Man Lane. Okay.
All right, I'm a lifelong resident of Plaquemines. I've been in the oil field for its production. I've did every kind of fishing you can do in these waters for its commercial fishing and sport fishing. I've been involved with Port Eads since they drove the first screw in it. They actually had about $25,000 worth of stainless screws in the dock. So I've been down there. I have a lot of dreams to do with, as far as to get the place going, a lot of ideas. I have a lot of clientele for as to fill the place and to make it come back. I mean, just an old fisherman.
Thank you. Please state your name and your address, please.
Distinguished Councilman, my name is David Gaines. I'm at 17498 Old Scenic Highway in Zachary, Louisiana. What a pleasure it is to be here today, and we're quite excited about it. We decided that we wanted to put the right complement of the team together. I'm a veteran from the United States Navy. There's 4 of us that are involved in this board that have either retired military officers or served with honorable discharges as enlisted men. A little bit about Port Eads. It's just too fine to shutter the place, and that's why we're here. And we wanted to, there's a few key words I want to say. One is local, skilled, help the public here in Plaquemines Parish, not let some large, rich organization benefit from it, but let our local people here in Plaquemines Parish. We are either retired. I retired from ExxonMobil after 32 years, 4 years in the U.S. Navy before that. I served an unusual assignment for Esso Angola Exploration in Africa, where I operated a very large facility, $9 billion facility, all the onshore operations to bring out oil out of Angola, Africa. So I know a little bit about remote facilities, a little more remote than this one. It's about a 21-hour from door to door that I went to Africa and worked for 4 years. But it has all the same concepts of getting everything remotely to this site, so it's just a little shorter. So I put this little handout that we did. The other thing we put together, that's this handout here, thank you, Angela, is we also have drafted a resolution, and hopefully you have this copy in your packet. It looks like this versus the handout that you see up on the screen. And does everyone have this one? If not, we'll get it to you. But if we can cut to the chase here, the main thing we want to do today is respectfully request, and I have it bolded in the slide here, to respectfully request Plaquemines Parish Council's approval by resolution to authorize the parish president to execute the interim Port Eads operating agreement. And that agreement, as written, extends through the end of the year. Its main cut is 120 days of that. We've really been pushing hard here, all working every day for weeks now to try to put this package together for you. And the real pressure is the fishing season that's coming about. Memorial weekend, if you're not open and operating by then, you can forget the fishing season this year. So that's why we're pushing for it. In this resolution, I would like to propose that you consider allowing the resolution to extend by amendment to cover a long-term agreement as well. We're going to spend quite a bit of money, and we don't want to find ourselves at the end of the year not having a right to continue as the operator. So we've already introduced some of the board members. I'm going to flip to the slide that shows a little more introduction. Tony Bruce, you've met. Scott Pella's not here today. He's working on a boat. So he's finishing up his personal work so he can start working with us in May. He operated in a capacity at Port Eads in facility management for 3 years. So we're very fortunate to have him on board. Walter Heathcock, you've met. Katrina Brown is down there as the watching over the facilities. We're quite excited of the possibility of her coming on board. She's quite good with handling the customers and facility management, even down to cooking. And what we're going to find out, and we know, is as we get started, we're going to have more than one hat. So we think we're going to start with 2 full-time staff and go to as high as 4. If you go now to the board of directors, James Moan couldn't be here today. He's been down here. He's drafted the resolution for Randy to give his legal review. So I'd appreciate that. We couldn't get that done this quickly. James is a double amputee. So we dealt with a gentleman that lost both his legs, and we actually took him fishing for the first time since he contracted the illness that lost his legs. Since 2013, he had quite a good time catching redfish, and he was an avid fisherman before that occurred. Again, I'm David Gaines, so I said enough about myself. Angela, that carries a lot of credibility with her being a retired major from the Marine Corps. Thank you for the service. Anybody else here, military background? Would you please stand? I'd like to recognize your service, sir. Keith Lawrence is Angela's husband. He's a U.S. Navy veteran and realtor. And he's a great volunteer to support his wife and giving back to the veterans. Robert Douglas is a retired lieutenant colonel from the Army. He and I worked together over a course of 38 years for him at ExxonMobil in charge of about $80 million of contracts. So very fortunate to have him because contracts are going to be important. So we could go back to the mission statement. Okay, I'm sorry, go back one. All right, I hope I'm not taking too long. I'll try to speed it up. We want to restore the image of Port Eads as a world-class destination because it is. We want to relieve your cost burden, but we've got to get on our feet too. It takes time. We want to preserve the asset. It's a $14 million facility you know all too well. What a great asset to have. But like any asset, you got to take care of it too, and it comes with a burden. And we must incorporate local business for local economic benefit. And that's one of the reasons we have Walter here. We're talking to local business about oil and, diesel and gasoline service. And we want to be the first veterans retreat in the state of Louisiana. They got them in Mississippi. They got them in Alabama. Why can't they be in Louisiana? And we want to be the first to do that. There are some smaller type services that are provided, but this will be a great one. And having the airport close by when we want to, and William Ladner has done a great job establishing the little 2,000-foot airstrip. So we're going to be going to helo operators, you know some, we'd like to talk with them about maybe donating some time or reduce costs to help our veterans get to the site and not just have to go by boat only. So on the mission statement is two-part. It's for local business and public use. This is not going to be so expensive that the local resident can't come enjoy. William Ladner wants to even have a campground near the airstrip so that people that can't afford the cost of the room, because it costs money to operate a room like that maybe they could camp out. And focus on the fishing, hunting, and other water activities. Do you want to say any more about the veterans part of the mission?
I think we're good. We've been networking for weeks with other.
You can talk here.
As I said before, I'll just expound on it a tad bit. We've been networking for several weeks with other large national and Louisiana 501(c)(3)s, organizations that benefit veterans of Louisiana. And so that's a huge volunteer force that we're already picking up, and veterans that want to come attend. And what we want to do is to provide them a veteran retreat for the families. A lot of the retreats and stuff out there are for the individual veteran and or related to anxiety or MST or PST. We want them to come have a great time in this beautiful parish and enjoy our waterways and fishing.
Thank you. All right, let's talk about money just for a minute. If we go to the serving the public slide. Yeah, very good. All right, we have members, and we're fortunate with another donation. We have pledges of $121,000, and our goal is $500,000. It sounds like a lot of money, but it's not. It's we have a water taxi service that we've got to fund the boat for. We've got to go through and take care of some deferred maintenance. The facility is in pretty great shape, but there's some deferred maintenance items: air conditioning, generator servicing, water supply. Even though William Ladner's done a great job by himself, we need to support that. And we're actually we started working on the air conditioners last weekend. Camps and boat slip rentals is going to be a big help to get us some income. Again, I already mentioned the low cost for the parish residents. We're going to have some rodeos, church groups, and fishing festivals, and we'd like to sell some ice and food services. So if we could go to the last slide, I guess, the operating agreement. So can we get started by May the 15th? It's really up to everybody in this room. It's up to all of y'all to consider the resolution, and it's up to us working ourselves silly to get it done. We want a long-term 10-year lease, and we'd like to have 3 5-year renewals. We don't want to spend $500,000 and only have it go to someone else and lose those funds. So what happens over the next 120 days? The proposal is that we help share the cost, and you help us too to get on our feet. And whether it's security, the Port Eads, the boat, the Port Authority's boat, ship, it looks more like a ship to me, but, and then we're going to work on cost reduction efforts, whether you pay the electricity bill or we pay the electricity bill together. There's a lot of waste going out there that we can cut back on the energy costs. And we talked about the time, and we got to have insurance, and we owe you stewardship. We want to come see you quarterly, or you can really decide. We can work with President Kirk on what frequency of stewardship you'd like to do. And that's the end of that presentation. The resolution, again, still subject to legal review by the parish, by Plaquemines Parish Council. I would like you to consider it. And I would like you to please consider authorizing President Kirk to enter in an agreement with us, giving us the flexibility on the short-term timing, and to consider amendment as it's written to add, which is the last page, which to add amendment to extend the authorization to a long-term agreement as well, consistent with what I just mentioned. So we also, without forgetting, we've got to remember the Port Eads, what's the name of it? The Port Eads Refuge, Fishing Refuge, always get it backwards. And we have been working with Jacques Coucha, and we met at his office on Pondra Street in New Orleans, and we had a very productive discussion. He has been forthcoming with financial data that's been very helpful to us to try to, you look at the past so you can predict the future. So they serve as an entity between us, the outfitter, we're like the High Adventures outfitter, and they are the intermediate organization, not-for-profit, that's in front of you, the parish. So we have the resolution drafted for your consideration, but also for theirs too as well.
And I would like to thank ladies and gentlemen for your presentation. Is there any comments or question from the table? Mr. Gouy?
Very refreshing. You know, for the last 5 years, the facility has been manned, has been operated. The word's out. What's most encouraging to me is the expansion of usage. Just because of the nature of the animal, for the last 5 years, it's been a clientele that is pretty much earmarked as the clientele. What you're doing by opening it up not only to veterans but to the general public, it's my hopes that we will see more business generated, and you'll have a successful time with that operation. Been a lot of talk about navigational problems, mostly of course at the jetties, more than getting to it, but getting out. Do you have any thoughts or plans on or any issues that you can come up with that may hinder the ability to attract clientele in regards to navigation?
All right, I'll yield to him.
I was on the phone yesterday with Jacques Coucha, and he told me yesterday one of the board members for the Refuge Board was in Washington at U.S. Representative Congressman Scalise, is it Scalise? Scalise's office to try to secure some funds for dredging South Pass. And there's a lot of people, you know, trying to get South Pass dredged. But at the same time, you know, South Pass is not totally silted in. There's still a channel. But somebody without experience going down the channel could get in trouble quick because it's not that wide. But there is a good depth of water. There's one area you get into, of course the river's higher right now, but with the river down, there's an area of about, I don't know, maybe 1,000 feet or a quarter mile that becomes a little shallow. So if we could get that flushed out, the channel will be fine. But the problem was the big boats couldn't get through there, and that caused a lot of issues for the previous operator because they were depending a lot on big boats. We want the big boats, but we're not going to be totally dependent. Like Mr. Gouy said, we're going to have people who really not even coming down to fish. A lot of our business is going to be not even fishing related, but they still have to get down there and get back safely. So a lot of experienced captains that we have on board will be able to do that.
Yeah, and I think the opening it up to retreats and even to the science community through local universities is going to pan out also. In regards to the navigation, when the hopper dredges come in and they dump that silt, that's what kind of fills up those channels. So I think that's an issue that unless something changes there, we'll be fighting with that. What are your thoughts about marking of the channel so that guys like me will have breadcrumbs to follow in order to keep from having to call CETO to come drag me up into deep water? What are your plans there?
Very good question, very good comment. It's complicating when you're dealing with the Corps of Engineers, you're dealing with the Coast Guard, all the people that can help you. But without making any big commitments, we have plans of doing exactly what you're saying, hopefully marking the actual channel. Those of you that are familiar with South Pass, the pass is real wide, and they got the buoys, the green and the red, like way out to the sides. So if you follow that, you're going to get in trouble. So the actual channel is a smaller part of the river, so to speak. And you're correct when you say the suction dredges, I think there's 3 right now working the river. When they suck that silt and they throw it out, so a lot of it's going to South Pass because that's at the head of the pass. So that, and I think Jacques or somebody said that Washington's been made aware of that the Corps is actually causing the problem by, the suction dredge. So there's a lot of complexities, but there's a lot of hard work going in to getting the problem solved. Look, the facility was built. The channel can be fixed. Just need money.
And I think with the beneficial use dredging, that some of it is being done, expanding on that, I think it's cost efficient when you think about what damage is being done with the extra silt and where it's going. So to continue that and to spend money to dredge, yet one of the sources of the problem is not addressed, I think that's where we need to focus our attention.
That's correct. Thank you, sir.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm done.
Is there any more questions or
Mr.
comments
LaFrance,
from the
ma'am.
table?
Oh.
No, you're good. I'll come back. We need to discuss the other person.
I know, but I want
Mr. President, Mr.
Ma'am.
Lapine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Tony Bruce and Mr. David Gaines for an outstanding presentation. They came to us, and our duty was to make sure every council member had the information. So that being said, we see a resolution on the table today to go in negotiation. So I want to be up and up frank with all of you guys and tell you that there was another company that came Tuesday that wanted to come today, and I told them no, that I wanted to have a presentation first with the administration and then to bring that presentation to the council. Now, we see this on as as a resolution for suspension. Now, it's my duty to, and I'm not picking sides of Mr. Bruce. I think I get very excited about his presentation, but it's my duty incumbent upon me to tell you about another obligation. Now, if this council wishes not to review with these other people, that's fine. Our legal team has a little bit of concern in this resolution, and I'm going to let him speak on it, Mr.
Well, do you want to wait till the resolution's actually offered, or, I mean, would that be more appropriate, or
That would be appropriate.
you feel that would be more appropriate?
Be on the floor.
Okay, is there any,
On the floor?
Ms. Trudy?
I have a question. You're presenting 120 days. Do y'all see anything beyond that?
Yeah.
I mean, what are y'all plans for beyond the 120 days?
The 120 days is really transition time for us to take over the facilities, try to do some inshore fishing, maybe some tuna boat service, some fuel. After that, we're going to be spending more and more money. The money's going to ramp up. And we've started out, for instance, our budget for the next month is $11,000. And our income expected is $0. So we may pick up some, a few room rentals, some food, maybe some fuel. We've got to get the fuel out there. But as we go up and we start getting our legs, so we get the channel marked. We mark it ourselves, because right now you're going to run aground, as Tony mentioned. But the channel is there, and we know where it is. It's Walter Heathcock goes there. I saw him twice there with bringing customers there. And so they know the water is going to mark it. As we do, business is going to pick up, and then we want to move into a long-term agreement. If we have problems getting the long-term agreement ironed out, it gives us some more time to get through the end of the year, as long as we have good faith between both parties that we're going to have a long-term agreement. Does that help? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Roussel?
Go ahead, I'll finish.
Go ahead.
I'd like to just add to what David said. One of the misfortunate things that has transpired is that in us shutting down Port Eads, it's caused a lot of negative publicity out in the community, especially with a lot of fishermen from out of the Plaquemine Parish. Like, I know I've got a lot of friends in Baton Rouge, and they say, why it shut down? It's never going to come. I said, y'all just be patient. So that 120 days allows us to go to these people, probably, generate enough funds to get maybe not to our $500,000 goal, but maybe halfway. And it would ensure that we can enter into the 10-year lease. And I don't know if David mentioned this. If we're fortunate to get this thing going in the first 2 months, we're going to come to you guys and say, look, we're ready to sign the 10 years. We just need to be confident that everything is in place for y'all and for us. And I don't mind telling you, one of the big obstacles was the nonprofit. And I don't want to raise a subject that maybe this is not the time and the place, but the nonprofit was an issue that our attorney and our board realized if the council doesn't want the nonprofit, that's one thing. If the nonprofit doesn't want us, that's one thing. We have negotiated real hard to keep everything in place, keep the peace, and move forward. And that's the kind of people that we are. And we understand there's other people looking at it, but nobody has worked as hard as we've worked to be where we are today, and we feel we've got a distinct advantage. Walter and I have been talking about this for probably over a year, Walter, about this whole thing. And we've done a lot of work. And look, if y'all got to look at another group, we understand that. But one thing is that, unless that other group is as serious as we are, we're not going to wait. I mean, we're business people. If we're not fishing, I would say by June, we're not fishing. And then the season's gone, and everything is based between May 25th, when the red snapper season opens, and the Star Tournament opens, and everybody starts having fishing rodeos, the faux pas, the Grand Isle Tarpon, and come, Labor Day? September, 5th? The business goes down. So we've got to make hay while the sun shines in those 4 months. And we know that. That's why we've pushed so hard to get where we are. For somebody to come behind us and take advantage of the hard work that we've put in, we frankly think it's not fair, but that's y'all decision. We big boys. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Bruce, I respect what you just said, and I enjoy the concept of bringing the veterans, and I think that would be a plus for Plaquemines Parish. So, because this war that we're in doesn't seem like it's going to end, so this is a great honor. Thank you.
Mr. Roussel?
Yes, I also like to thank you for your presentation as well, and I thank you for reaching out to Mr. Bartholomew, getting you involved, and then going to Mr. Lapine. I don't know what the next presentation will look like, but for what I'm going to address are absolute immediate needs. I don't know if you intend on extending the security contract, but as of now, we have no insurance on the building. I believe that it's imperative upon the administration to find some funding to come to us. I've taken the liberty to contact the Human Resource Department. It would take $18,665 to put us back under the insurance umbrella of all the rest of the buildings. Now, if it's a prorated number, I don't know, but we need to make sure that we can insure the building no matter who comes up and takes over and operates it. I think that's critical. The next thing would be whether you can work out something with the port. So you have some comments on that, maybe?
I have some comments on the insurance. That was one of my concerns too. And when I initially spoke to Human Resources, I was under the impression from them and both the insurance carrier that because it was on a spreadsheet listed that there in fact was coverage. Ms. Sue Parks brought the issue up to me, I think, a couple days ago, and my understanding is that there are monies in the insurance budget that have not been encumbered, and that there's enough monies to go ahead and encumber those funds and go ahead and add Port Eads to the property list. So
well, I would encourage you to do that as soon as possible, and I'm glad to hear that the funds are still there. They do have $6.4 million worth of contents insurance in this package, so I would expect that to be, I mean, that sounds like a lot of money for the contents, but I'm glad that we're going to move forward. At least we'll get insurance on the building before the hurricane season comes. The second thing would be you have some other legal issues that we need to address, because I'm prepared to support these individuals who have come forward and made an excellent presentation, have expanded the scope to local residents as well as to the veterans, as you've heard from everybody else, and to move forward. Now, indeed, it is an interim agreement. If somebody comes up and doubles down and says, we can do all of this for you, then we would have to have a second choice, and we'd have to look at that. But right now, we have one choice before us, and I would expect us all to move forward in that direction and let the second choice come by, and if they can beat it and overwhelm it, then we can consider it. But this is an interim agreement, so we need to understand that.
May I offer one other thing? We want the success of Port Eads for Plaquemines Parish, not just for our own selfish reasons. So we've already reached out to the other entity that's of interest in this, and we're going to say, let's join us. We'll work together, and we'll give them a chance. Of course, we're going to look at their credibility. We're going to research their background. Do they really have the financial viability to do it? But we're out for the common good here, not just for what we can get ourselves. And we want to give back. We've all been very fortunate. Came from very meager backgrounds, by the way. I lived in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house on 72 acres with 7 siblings, so I know what poor is all about.
You had plenty of ground to run on.
Yeah, we did. So anyway, that's my point is we've already reached out to them.
Mr. Blank?
Sure, I have a question about the airstrip. Is the airstrip going to be teased out of this agreement? And can that be handled by Woolley Ladner, who's been maintaining the strip for a while now and who has insurance on it?
Kurt, you want to comment?
That's something we haven't discussed yet, but we would be open to a discussion.
Thank you.
Mr. Konovich?
Yeah, I'm met y'all in Venice, and I'm behind y'all 100%. I just want to make sure, use a lot of local people and make sure they got all their T's crossed, I's dotted, occupational license, all that. I'm looking forward to seeing y'all down there.
Mr. Lawrence?
Yes, Warren Lawrence. I was appointed to that board and a committee in January of this year. I have contacted Mr. Jacques. I've contacted the other members. I can't even get a second to get a meeting. First I hear of it as being a member of the committee is right here. I dissolved the committee. Do we need the committee? It seems like they bypassing the committee except the president of the committee. And my question is, I'm 100% behind you. 100%. And I wish I could have been in part of being up here with some knowledge of what was going on. I haven't been down there in 30 years. And I don't know what it's like after the hurricane. I know what it was like before. But the point is, there's a charter on that committee was created to handle a nonprofit. And they haven't had a meeting as required every 3 months. I can't get a financial report. I don't know what's happening. When I volunteered for it, I said I would dig into it. Well, we're down in the marsh country, and I'm digging in the rocks. Thank you.
Mr. Roussel.
Mr. Lawrence, have you been contacted by Mr. Kuchta or anybody? So you had no contact?
I've contacted them, asking for a meeting. I went to them on my own to get a copy of the charter, how this board was created.
And they gave you all of that?
I got it from the council, not from him.
All right.
I can't find out even any minutes of any board meeting that's ever been had. And I don't know if there's an audit has ever been conducted on it. I know you had mentioned the part of that's something maybe down the line, y'all overloaded with things to do on the audit committee. And maybe there's nothing to audit.
Well, I would suggest that you maybe try a few more times to reach out to some of the members and see what kind of response you get.
Okay. I'm glad if y'all get in touch with it.
I think if this group has a nonprofit organization, we could do away with that nonprofit and just use them.
Well, Mr. Lapine, you have a challenge before you if this resolution passes, and you can look at all of those suggestions that have been made today, and I would hope that we wouldn't wait 6 months to report back to us, but as soon as you get something rolling, 30 days or so, come back and inform us as to what the progress is, and if this passes today, I think we're on our way to solving some of the Port Eads issues.
And I appreciate that. Appreciate the comments. And let me make it clear to these gentlemen here that I'm not against you guys. I want you guys, and these guys were the first, and they had an excellent presentation, and I agree and believe with them. But it's my duty and obligation to tell you. Now, if we want to move forward and then just say, hey, we passed something, we're moving with these guys, that's fine.
Don't misconstrue what I'm thinking. What I'm thinking is this, that if we move forward today, they have an interim agreement in place that doesn't preclude you from talking to the second group that can come along with whatever they come along with. And if the second group winds up marrying up with the first group, that's even better. But I'm not discouraging you from moving forward with your goal of talking to the second group. I mean, everybody in the room understands that, so there's no ill will, bad faith. There's no hidden agenda. We're looking for the best deal for the people of Plaquemines Parish to run this facility to the benefit of the state and the nation and whoever else wants to go there, is my opinion. So having said that, don't take it as being tell the other group goodbye.
That was not my intent. I'm just telling you. I'm giving you the information today. So I just want you to be informed.
Okay, is there any more comments from the table?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to, if you don't mind, to move to 7A at this time. Seek the suspension.
A resolution authorizing and directing the parish president to enter into an interim operating agreement with Port Eads Facility Management, LLC, for the operation of Port Eads and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
I offer for the seek the suspension.
We have a motion by Mr. Bartholomew, second by Mr. Roussel.
To suspend the rules.
To suspend the rules.
Yeah.
Is there any question from the table? Any questions or comments from the audience? Machine is open. The measure passes 7 and 1 absent, 8 and 1 absent. The rules are suspended. Now we're going to add this. We're going to add this item.
A resolution authorizing and directing the parish president to enter into an interim operating agreement with Port Eads Facility Management, LLC, for the operation of Port Eads and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
We have a motion by Mr. Bartholomew, seconded by Mr. Corey Albro. Is there any questions or comments from the table?
Yes, I have one for Danny Garrett. Danny, I'm an outfitter. I use the facility about maybe a dozen times a year. Should I be abstaining from this vote? I would be more of like a customer. What's your opinion on that?
I think you don't have a problem if you pay them. The only time it'd be a problem is if they were a client of your business.
Should I abstain out of an abundance of caution?
That'll be your decision. I don't think the law mandates you, but certainly if you want to, just to eliminate any potential issue.
And would that affect the passage if I were to abstain?
No.
No, it does not change the number of votes needed for passage.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Is there any more comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The legal department, the only comment or concerns I have is that the resolution authorizes and directs the parish president to enter into an interim operating agreement, and the language should read that it's authorizing the Port Eads Fishing Refuge, LLC, to negotiate and enter into an operating agreement with the Port Eads Facility Management. And the reason that is because the only reason we're allowed to do this without doing sealed public bids is because the council established a nonprofit public benefit corporation who is handling this on behalf of the parish. And so it would be appropriate that that language be changed, both obviously in the preamble and then also in lines 14 and 15.
Yeah, we offer with those changes. Matter of fact, let's just go back, if you don't mind, withdraw your second, and we put it in. You second, yeah. If Mr. Albrow will withdraw it. So go back and add that before they come up with the introduction.
Would you like to?
Y'all have it? You have it, what he said? Okay, good.
Please read it.
Let me offer it with the changes.
Okay, good.
Offer with the changes. Mr. Albrow, you second with the changes? Okay, could you read the changes, please?
Speak on the changes.
Yeah, she's going to read the changes, then you can come up.
A resolution authorizing and directing the Port Eads Fishing Management to enter into an interim operating agreement with Port Eads Facility Management, LLC, for the operation of Port Eads and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. And also changing line 15, where the be it resolved will say, be it resolved by the Douglas Parish Council that it authorizes and directs Port Eads Fishing Management to do all things necessary and proper to enter into an interim operating agreement with Port Eads Facility Management, LLC, for the temporary operation of Port Eads.
Now, that brings to question the fact that we're giving our authority to negotiate to the nonprofit, which in the past the nonprofit never did inform us that they hired a for-profit corporation to start with. So I think this needs to be tied up to where this government body understands what that nonprofit that he says he has no contact with is going to negotiate with this nonprofit, and at the end of the day, we don't have any say on it.
No, that's not correct. What the statute says is it says that basically that they would negotiate it and that you all would ultimately approve it. Okay, approve whatever agreement.
The interim agreement?
Yes, sir. Yes, any agreement. I mean, the only reason, like I said, we're allowed to do this without sealed bids is because we've set up a public benefit corporation that's supposed to act on behalf of the public, and so essentially what you're doing is you're letting the Port Eads Fishing Refuge know that you like these guys, that you would like them to enter into and negotiate an agreement with these individuals, okay, they will go ahead and do that, okay, and then that would be submitted to the council, and then you guys via resolution could then basically affirm that agreement. And just so everyone's clear, this is all through revised statute 41-12-15.
Right.
And the only reason I'm making sure we're precise on this is because anyone could come and challenge us if we don't follow these rules to the T. And the other point I'd like to bring to your attention is that that any leases, subleases, or agreements shall be negotiated. It says this specifically in the revised statute. Such leases or subleases shall be negotiated and let by the public benefit corporation in accordance with a fair and reasonable criteria established and applied by the public benefit corporation relating to a balance of factors, including but not limited to rent, highest return of revenue and benefits to the political subdivision, financial stability, architectural design, development and management of operational plan, uniqueness of operation, and stimulating or other industrial or commercial activity within the political subdivision or the state. So there are some objective criteria by which when the Port Eads Fishing Refuge, the nonprofit public benefit corporation, is negotiating this, or they're looking for operators to come in and operate this on behalf of the parish, there are some objective standards and criteria that they are supposed to look at. And so that's why I'm being very precise on this, so that no one can come after the fact and challenge what we're trying to do here today.
I understand, and I understand why we're doing the changes. I just want to make sure, like, I'm going to reiterate what I said a minute ago, that the nonprofit negotiates something that we can live with this nonprofit. And if the resolution says for a long-term management agreement, they come back to us. The interim agreement, they don't come back to us.
Well, I'm not comfortable with that, to be honest with you. I think any agreement, okay, whether it's short-term or long-term, needs to comply with 41-12-15.
Then we need to do another amendment in here.
Well, what would your amendment be?
It would be that the interim agreement that the nonprofit negotiates with the other nonprofit comes back to us for approval.
Yeah, but that would just be another resolution that you all can suspend the rules, and another resolution say someone would submit the agreement to you, and you all would look at it and suspend the rules and adopt a resolution saying you all approve of the agreement.
That's exactly right, but it doesn't say that here.
Well, I mean, you can put it in there if you want. I'm just saying by law it needs to happen. So if you want to go ahead and add it into this resolution just to be clear, then yeah, I have no objection to that. I'm sorry, I misunderstood what you were saying.
Yeah. So you want to see if you can insert the language way?
Let's put that in. Mr. Albright withdraw his second. Now we'll bring it back to discussion.
We just got to get it clear, that's all. It takes a few minutes and we'll do it. So
Gary, do you have any input on this? All right. I mean, with Benny, we're getting all this done. Stay on task, huh?
I'm looking at it right now.
Stay on task.
I'm looking at it right now.
Well, everybody get to it.
Well, hold on.
The first be it.
Yeah, let's defer it. I'll get with Mr. Garrett and we'll
5-minute break. We'll just take a 5-minute break.
Whatever you guys prefer.
We'll take a 5-minute break.
May I make one comment before they're looking at it, that as a member of that committee, if you want an interim, I'm asking that you set the time limit you'd like an interim to be. If they agree into 120 days or something like that, that's fine. Just open it up to be interim.
It's in here.
Okay. I don't know what it says, but as long as it defines with that interim.
5-minute break. We're returning from a 6-minute break. The time is 2:58.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to offer.
Mr. Bartholomew.
Second.
I'd like to offer the following amendment. On the second, now therefore be it resolved, on line 18, insert the following language. An interim management agreement has been agreed upon. Said agreement shall become effective upon approval by the Plaquemines Parish Council. So it says, it's another further be it resolved, that the Plaquemines Parish Council that wants an interim management agreement has been agreed upon. Said agreement shall become effective upon approval of the Plaquemines Parish Council. Got it?
No.
There you go. It's a second. That's my amendment. Ask for a second.
Second.
She's open on them. Want them open? Any discussion?
Voting on the amendment.
Are there any questions on the amendment? Any questions from the audience? Hearing none, the machine is open.
Amendment, but don't vote on that.
And the vote is 7-1 abstain. I mean, one no vote.
One abstain. One absent, one abstain.
Oh, okay. All right. Then one abstain. Call for the question by Mr. Bartholomew on the original resolution as amended. And the vote is 7 for, 1 abstain, and 1 absent.
Thank you, everybody. They're getting this done.
We're very grateful to you guys, and we're going to do our best to make y'all look good and really come back of Port East. Thank y'all.
Thank you. We'll move to the next item.
6A1. Dr. Gu, are you ready to proceed with it?
Yes, I am.
6A1, an ordinance to establish residential parking zone A on both sides of Upsilon Street, Iota Street, Lambda Street, and on Omega Street, commencing at its intersection with Iota Street, running in a southerly direction to its dead end, to establish a penalty for the violation thereof, to authorize the parish president to have the appropriate signs installed, and issue residential parking permits and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
I've distributed a substitute that was redrafted by the legal department. The text is the same, but I offer the substitute and ask for a second.
Second.
The area, in the packet I just sent out and I emailed earlier, there is a map on the third page. That map shows the streets directly north of the entrance to the Naval Air Station, specifically Upsilon, Lambda, Iota, and a portion of Omega. We've been having a problem in that area with parking by people who are contractors on the base. And the parking, did you have a copy? You have? Kirk, you have a copy? And Randy?
Yeah, we just got a copy, yes, sir.
And what's happened is the congestion that's been created on those streets has become somewhat of a safety hazard. Luckily, we have not had the need for an ambulance or fire truck, because if that would have occurred, the vehicles that were parked there would have prevented access to the area in need. So after discussions with our legal department and the sheriff's office, and a letter that was sent to the residents of that area, we have come up with an amendment to our parish code of ordinances that establishes that area as a residential parking zone, which means you have to have a sticker on your car if you're on the street, temporary sticker if you're on the street. We've gone and speaking with the administration, it would be a very simple thing to do. It mirrors what's done in other parishes in creating that parking area. We've worked with the commander of the base. He's been very, very cooperative, and he made the request to all of his contractors to not use the residential parking area because they would park there and then walk on the base to go to work. The neighbors, of course, have been very vocal about this problem, and they all agree that this may be the solution. And then putting the signs up alone may be a deterrent. So that is the text of this ordinance. I'll answer any questions anyone may have from the table, Mr. Chairman, and then from the administration or the ordinance or the audience. Any questions?
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Gui. Did anyone second it?
Yeah, I did.
Mr. Bartholomew seconded. Is there any question from the table? Any questions or comments from the audience? Machines are open. The votes is 8-1 absent. Mr. Gui?
Any thoughts on a timeline to get the signs up?
Mr. Dugas?
Yesterday, you know, would be good.
Might be a while, because I got a list.
This is the first. Too, but I want this one at the top of my list.
This is the first I've heard of this ordinance today. So.
Okay, so how long? After the meeting, you want to talk?
6 months.
Unacceptable. I'm going to have some residents give you a call.
No problem.
Yeah, I'm on their speed dial.
No problem.
Yeah. And then the other thing we need to work out would be getting to the residents to say, you know, this is the ordinance that's passed, this is what you wanted, this is what we got, but here's your decal. they're going to need a decal or something, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to take at least, within 30 days, we ought to be able to have letters out and have some decals and stuff printed.
That's at no cost, is that correct, the decals? At no cost to the,
No.
At no cost, no.
Who's making the decals?
yeah, that's what I meant.
We're going to charge that to District 6.
That's it?
That's it, I'm done.
Next item.
6A2, an ordinance approving a plan of re-subdivision of Lot A-2 Woodland Commons, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, into lots 8, 9, and A3 Woodland Commons, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, is shown on the plans and plat of survey by Dufresne Surveying and Engineering, Inc., dated January 16, 2019. The owner having fulfilled all the requirements of the subdivision and re-subdivision ordinance of the Parish of Plaquemines without cost to Plaquemines Parish government or the Parish of Plaquemines, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
I so offered.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Trudy. I spoke to Amitra. Everything is in order. So I offered. Any question from the table?
Where's the map?
Yeah, what is this? What is that?
That's a subdivision of,
Touche.
I tell you what. Hey, I got all of it.
What'd you say sometimes?
Okay. Who seconded me, Ms. Trudy? Would you withdraw your second, and I'll withdraw it, and I'll defer it to the next meeting?
No, you had it. They just made
Oh, okay.
You just pulling your leg.
Oh, all right. I thought y'all didn't have it. I knew I had it.
I don't have it.
Mr. Chairman, I have an explanation if you wanted to.
Oh, I want the map.
I ain't got it. I don't need it.
Oh, okay. Okay. Is there any questions from the table? Any questions or comments from the audience? Hearing none, machines are open. And the measure passes 8-1, absent. Next item.
6D, an ordinance requiring all developers to maintain and repair all street utilities, drainage structures, and other improvements within their development for a minimum of 5 years, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
I would withdraw this audience, and I will present it at the next meeting. And if any council members had any questions they would like to ask me, please do so.
You want to defer it or withdraw it?
I will defer it.
F, an ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan for the replacement Point Allahash ferry ramps project, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
I'd like to offer for discussion only.
We have a motion by Mr. Bartholomew.
For discussion only.
For discussion only. Do I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Roussel. Mr. Bartholomew.
Thank you. The problem is that everyone know how terrible the ramps are in Point Allahash. It's really sad that we are in the position we're in, and we need to move forward with trying to get this funding from the state to the federal government and get a plan of action of trying to get these ramps replaced, rebuilt, whatever it is. And I would just like to turn that over to the administration to get back with me with filling in the blanks and whatever we need when we get the fundings that we need to have. And also, we need to secure some kind of, we'll figure out how we can secure that $6 million. So $6 million plus or $6 million, whatever it is, that the state has in hand that can assist us in completing these ramps. And the other question is to determine whether or not we're going to rebuild in the same place where we are, or are we going to rebuild in a new place where we own the property. What I mean, we mean the Plaquemines Parish government. We own properties on both sides of the river in a different location. So it's up to us to determine whether or not we want to rebuild where we are, or rebuild in a new place where we own the property. So that's determined. You have to make that determine as well what is best, what you think. And I'm just trying to expedite this because we're about to move in, and we need to start moving forward of replacing those terrible ramps we have. So any question, any concerns, anything that we can do to expedite that, I'm 100%. And if we need to go to Baton Rouge to meet with the Secretary of Labor, I don't have a problem making a contact, making a call to get that done expeditiously, because it's my understanding that we need to consult with their engineering department, that is the one that's going to develop the plans for this levee. But we need to make some kind of connection, some kind of contact to get this thing rolling. That's all, and I appreciate all the effort the President and his teams can give us on these things to get this thing done.
I'm sorry, Rennie, I have a question. Do we not own the property where the ferry ramps are?
Yeah.
Okay, you.
I don't know about the West Bank. The East Bank we do, as long as we have the ferry ramps in.
I was just.
What I'm saying is, see, when you're building, you want to. It's going to encompass us of taking that ramp down and building the substitute while we build the new ramps, or you keep that intact for use while we build a new one somewhere else. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just saying these are options that they can consider. So we just have to determine which way we want to roll. Either way is fine by me. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I'll address the legal question and leave the rest to the parish president. My only concern would be, because this is bond money, I would absolutely require, or it'd be my recommendation that we get a written approval from our bond attorneys that the bond is does in fact allow for the funds to be used for the purposes Mr. John indicated. So.
Just do it. No, wait. Let's clarify the discussion first.
Mr. Russo?
I think Mr. John is talking about FHWA, federal highway funds, and you're talking about courthouse bond money, maybe for the match. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so there's two different discussions going on here.
Okay.
He wants us to secure the FHWA $6 million, and I agree with you. You need to get an opinion whether or not we can use the excess courthouse money for the contribution to the ramps. So if we can get moving in that direction, we're on the same page. Correct?
The initial thing that I was concerned with to get the money from the state, and I'm glad you brought it up about trying to look for that, because that's the thing that the president team was looking into anyway. But that's going to be your determination whether that money can be transferred to that pot or not. But the idea is to get the other money, the $6 million plus.
We've made a request to the bonding attorneys. We're waiting for feedback from them, and I would request that whatever their opinion is, that it be put in writing, and then I'll let the parish president address the issues about the federal grant.
Well, Mr. Dugas is here. You might.
I'm going to defer to Mr. Dugas. But the grant,
about the
Entity state agreement has only been signed for the Belle Chase 2 vessel to be Coast Guard certified this summer. The ramp replacement entity state agreement has not been executed yet.
And that amount of money that is in there, is it around $6 million?
The allocation that we have from FHWA through DOTD is somewhere in the neighborhood of $6 to $7 million.
So I think the effort here is that we try to execute and secure that funding, and you execute the bond attorney opinion, and we can put the two together and we can move on the ferry ramps. Right. If that estimate covers what we need to do.
Let me just point out that the Belle Chase 2 vessel is roughly $1.2 million to be Coast Guard certified. So we're going to be coming to y'all for around $240,000 this summer for a match.
What has to be done to it to make it COI?
I have to defer to the ferry department on that. What has to be done is.
That's a different pot of money, right?
No, sir. It's the same pot of money.
$7 million?
Yes, sir.
So you might want it with just $6 million. We don't know. How much cost? $300,000?
About 240.
Out of that money?
No, sir. That's money that we have to come up with for the match.
Coming out of that $7 million for that?
They're going to give us 1.2, almost $1 million out of it.
So that means the balance would be for the ramps?
Yes.
Okay. That's right.
And I think this is stating the obvious, but finance wants to make sure that the courthouse project is closed before we look at any additional funding for anything else, before we encumber courthouse monies for any other projects.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
Let's deal with it.
all right.
Next item.
Come on, man, that's what I need.
All right, I'm ready.
You deferred, Mr. F? Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
H, an ordinance to amend the 2019 911 Services Fund operating expenditure budget, 911 Services Department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Yes, I offer with changes being handed out. I'd like to first thank Dr. Gui for his assistance on this and also reaching deep into his budget to help fund this project. Note that Director Patrick Harvey's here to assist with any questions that y'all may have.
We have a motion by Mr. Corey Albro, seconded by Mr. Gui.
Yeah.
Is there any questions or comments from the table?
Yeah, I have a question. Am I recognized?
Yes, Mr. Russo.
I thought the original ask was about 35,000, and now we're going to 50. Now we're down to 42.5. What is the real need?
50. 50 is a real need. It's in order to replace the UPS system, which costs $35,000, and the additional funds would be used to outfit a backup 911 center that we do not have in the parish right now.
So this is getting you to 42.5.
What's that, sir? I'm
This
sorry.
gets you to 42.5.
What gets me to 42.5?
No, this gets you to
Yes,
42.
and I think that might be sufficient enough to do the UPS system and also the backup 911 center.
Yeah.
Also, of that 17,000 and change will be reimbursed from the Plaquemines Parish Sheriff's Office for the UPS system.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Could you please state your name and your address, please?
Patrick Harvey, 206 Oak Road, Apartment B, Bellchase, Louisiana, Director of Homeland Security Emergency Preparedness for the parish.
Thank you.
All right, sir. Anything else?
Is there any question from the table? Any questions or comments from the audience? Hearing none, the machine's open.
Got him out the read.
Ms. Newberry?
And the vote is 7.
8.
That ain't what I'm reading. 2 absent. That's right. 7 and 2 absent. Thank you. Next item.
An ordinance to amend the 2019 Manpower Structure Public Health Fund Animal Control Department and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Offer.
We have a motion by Mr. Corey Obro,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Konovich. Mr. Obro.
Yes, item 6I is moving some money around. It also goes in with J and K. It's changing some positions. The funding is a wash with that. And also Director Epley, do you have any questions? But again, it's just some changes with the positions.
So we unfunding this position, right?
Correct.
Oh, Mr. Gui?
Yes, it's my understanding that the unfunding of this position results in a decrease of X amount of dollars, and that the next 2 will just put it back. So it's a zero wash.
Yes, sir, that's
I
correct.
think that's important that we understand that we're not spending any additional funds.
I want to yield to Mr. Epley and give him an explanation.
Sure.
What we're trying to do with animal control is we have one animal control officer right now. We have a vacant position for an animal control officer. The vacant position for animal control officer we have not been able to fill because of the requirements for that position. So in order to have a second person on staff, we wanted to unfund the animal control officer and create a small animal warden position which does not have the same requirements as the animal control officer. In doing so, we also wanted to create the humane officer position for the gentleman, Derek, who is currently working and has been on call for 3 months straight to handle our issues with animal control. So this will give him a bump up, and then we'll eliminate his animal control position after he moves into that position. So we'll eliminate eventually 2 animal control officer positions, but create a humane officer and a small animal warden. The humane officer is a little more, the small animal warden is a little less, so the money in the salaries washes in the end.
Is there any questions from the table? Any questions or comments from the audience? Machine open.
Thank you.
The vote is 7 yea, 2 absent. Next item.
J, an ordinance to amend the 2019 Manpower Structure Public Health Fund, Animal Control Department, and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Offer is read.
I have a motion by Mr. Corey Albro,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Konovich. Is there any question from the table? Any questions or comments from the audience? Hearing none, the machine is open. And the vote is 7-2. 7-0, absent.
J, an ordinance to amend the 2019 Manpower Structure Public Health Fund, Animal Control Department, and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Offer is read.
I have a motion by Mr. Corey Albro, seconded by Mr. Gui. Could you explain this to me?
Saying that we unfunded one and funded the other. Now you're confused.
Oh, okay. All right. Is there any question from the table? Any questions or comments from the audience? Hearing none, the machine is open. And the vote is 7-0.
L, an ordinance to amend the 2019 Manpower Structure and Operating Expenditure Budget, General Fund, Ferries, General Department, and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Offer.
We have a motion by Mr. Corey Albro,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Konovich. Is there any questions from the table? Any questions or comments?
Yes.
Ms. Newberry?
Is this, from my understanding, is this where we're putting full-time to eliminate some of the overtime? Is that correct? Or am I misunderstanding what we discussed?
I'll let Todd speak on that, but yes, eliminating the overtime.
Yeah, so what we're trying to do here is we're using a lot of overtime weekly on ferries because we don't have staff with deckhands to staff the ferries correctly. So we're using people from maintenance, like a maintenance foreman and also a workflow coordinator as deckhands on the ferry to fill in, which has got us paying a higher overtime rate to begin with. If we hire 2 more deckhands, I can eliminate about 85 hours a week of overtime and save the parish $25,000 to $50,000 a year.
Is there any more questions from the table? Any questions or comments from the audience? Hearing none, the machine is open. And the vote is 7-0. It passed.
6M, an ordinance to amend the 2019 General Fund Manpower Structure and Operating Expenditure Budget, Interim Employee Training Department, and the Drainage Stock Shop Department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
I offer.
We have a motion by Mr. Corey Albro,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Konovich.
This is for the Drainage Department. Our superintendent is retiring. This is to put the person who will be taking that over on a temporary basis so that he can spend time training with the superintendent while he's still on staff.
The person is presently employed by us? This interim?
Yes. The interim, yes.
Okay. So he is shattering.
I'm sorry, the interim? I don't know if he's still on staff.
Angie, use the microphone.
He was the only person approved by civil service. I don't know if he's hired yet. But he will be hired short. I think what we need is his funding so that we can put him on the payroll.
We know who the person is?
Mr. Danny Spears. And this is no additional money out of the general fund. This is simply moving money from the existing operating account up to interim services, personal services.
So we didn't have anyone in the department that would qualify for this position.
Well, it was open for civil service. So civil service received all applicants who were interested, and my understanding is that's the only gentleman that qualified or was recommended to us by civil service.
Is there any questions or comments from the table? Any questions or comments from the audience? Machines are open. And the measure passes 7-0. Next item.
6O, a resolution authorizing and directing the parish president or his designee to do all things necessary and proper to provide assistance to the Plaquemines Parish Heritage and Seafood Festival and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Offer.
I have a motion by Mr. Corobo, seconded by Mr. Gouy.
As I discussed with y'all, this is the yearly CEA that we do with the Seafood Festival, similar to the Orange Festival each year.
Okay, I mean, you being a new council member, could request a copy of the CPA be sent to all the new council members?
CEA?
Yes.
CEA, yes. Okay, great. Is there any question from the table?
Yeah. So is this where, when we do this festival, the parish, we pay the parish workers to set up and break down and collect trash and all that? Is that our contribution? Is that what I'm reading?
In lieu of a donation, there's some contributions, but I don't believe, in kind, but I don't believe it's trash pickup. I believe some setup of maybe some tents and things, use of a generator, but yeah, not daily operations at the festival doing trash.
Tents, garbage cans.
I guess that's why we need the CEA to answer those questions.
That's fine. I mean,
No, that's fine.
I had the gentleman here, and everyone agreed that to let him go. So, okay.
Yeah, we would just like to know what the cost is to the government.
As new parish members, that's, we're good.
Whatever a CEA is entered into, it's already more or less been approved and authorized by the Parish Code of Ordinances. The Parish Code of Ordinances lists the types of criteria and the things that we can do and help out. So just so you know, that's all been pre-approved, and more or less what this ordinance is saying is that because this organization and this fair and festival is consistent with those types, we can enter into a CEA. But when I get to my office, I'll print out that part of the code for you and send it to you.
Yeah, send it to us all.
Quick question. I'm just kind of curious. What are some of the maritime assets that would be displayed?
The Seafood Fest at the entrance of the facility has different representatives throughout the community. CETO, some other local businesses just place their boats out there for helps with the visual aspect to get everyone in.
Thank you. Talking about boats, CETO is privately owned, so this says parish maritime assets.
But they put the sheriff's boats, our airboat.
Right. I just want to make sure it wasn't a port boat that we were doing an illegal contribution under Article 7.
No, it's not the port boat.
And at least, this organization donates back to the parish, too, to the different organizations in the parish.
I understand. And look, the bottom line of this is that, we can give up to $50,000 to every organization that meets the criteria. Instead of doing that, as Mr. Burris alluded to, we expend these funds to do that in-kind services, basically. So when you get the CEA, you'll be able to understand it a little better. And I think it's important that the new members get the CEA so they can see. And you can do an evaluation of the cost. And if it doesn't get to $50,000, then, it doesn't get there.
Of course, it's public record. Oh.
Retention policy, right?
Yes, sir.
Any questions from the table?
This is fun today.
Any questions or comments from the audience? Yes, please come to the mic.
Actually, just a statement, because I know Corey.
Please state your name. And
Kim Turlidge Vaughn.
Address?
106 Pie Street, Belchase, Louisiana. Not here as the clerk, but since Corey mentioned the Orange Festival, here representing Plaquemines Parish Fair and Orange Festival. I know Benny said as it gets up to $50,000. As I understand, and he's comparing it to the CEA that the Orange Festival utilizes, those fees that they talk about, Trudy, as far as paying the workers, the organization pays the workers, not the parish. We pay the workers their standard rate for those services that they provide for us on that weekend. That's how the Orange Festival does it. And I would assume that's the same way that the seafood does it as well.
Right.
So I just wanted to clear that up, that it's not anything that the parish pays, and it's not in lieu of the $50,000. In years past, they used to make like an $8,000 contribution that would cover the cost of the tents. Now we rent all of that. So it's a much larger expense to the organizations, but we ask for the parish support because we are promoting Plaquemines Parish in both of those titles of those festivals. That's what we do, and that's what we're here for. So I just wanted to make that clear, that it's not at an expense of the Plaquemines Parish government. The individual organizations pay those contributions to those employees that help us out. Now, as far as providing the trash receptacles and things like that, of course, that may be part of the CEA. That may not be at a cost to us, but as far as paying the employees, we do that.
Thank you for bringing that.
Speaking on behalf of the Orange Festival, like I said, but I'm quite sure it's the same for the seafood. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
Is there any question? Any more questions?
When we get the CEA.
What was the question?
No question. Statement.
Call a remark.
Call a question.
Question has been called for. Machines are open. The measure passes 7-0.
6R, a resolution opposing all proposed legislation, including but not limited to House Bill 57 of the 2019 Louisiana legislative session that transfers the administration and collection of local sales and use taxes to the Louisiana Department of Revenue and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
I'll offer.
Second.
This resolution is in response to a email that was sent out by the Police Jury Association. There's a bill in the legislature that would try to centralize sales tax collections, local sales tax collections. And it's felt by many, including me, that our sales tax department does the job, and we keep it local, as does every other parish. And that putting it into a centralized location kind of takes away some of what we have control over. In theory, I'm not saying it would, but to me it would. So this is just an opposition to that bill, and I hope we can get full support on that. I'm good, Mr. Chair.
We have a motion by Mr. Gouy, seconded by Mr. Roussel.
Mr. LaFrance, may I have a word?
Yes, sir, Mr.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Gouy. We actually, me and Ms. Russo attended RPC, and that was the topic at RPC. And I think the message is spread pretty well that we do not want to centrally locate. And I've sat with the sales tax director, and she adamantly opposes this too. So thank you for this legislation. Administration supports you.
It's not a new thing. It's been brought up before. Yeah. It never got anywhere. So thank you. See you.
Is there any more questions or comments from the table? Is there any questions or comments from the audience? Machines are open. And the measure passes 7-0.
Seven B will be deferred since Councilmember Bartholomew left. 7C, District 9 update, Councilmember Kognovich.
Yes, just a couple things. I got an email about some people wanting to donate the property where the post office was in Burris to the parish.
We can look at that. We encourage, unless there's a public need for the property, generally we encourage that it remain on the tax rolls. Otherwise, that's one more property we're not collecting property tax on. And not to mention, we have to cut and maintain. So obviously, immovable properties at the discretion of the council. And
We already cut the property now.
Well,
Next to the YMCA, and it's $116 a year on the tax roll. I don't know if we want to do it or not, but. And then there's a gentleman in Venice wanting to donate 300 palm trees to the parish, but we got to dig them up. If you want them, I'll tell him we'll come take them.
Wait, what was that? Palm trees?
Have a gentleman in Venice has 300 palm trees he wants to donate to the parish.
Queen palms?
Yeah.
I would refer you to finance to have a resolution or ordinance introduced.
Is it Palm Sunday this week?
Huh?
Palm Sundays this week?
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And then I just want to set the record straight. Our last meeting, I didn't have a problem with anything that was with the subdivision ordinance or the roundabout. I had a problem with the way the money was being diverted. And I'm here to work with everybody, so you don't have to call 10, 15 people in the community that know both of us to call me up and say I won't work with you, because I'm here to work with everybody. Just has to learn how to work with us. That's all.
All right. Moving right along.
Next item, please.
7D, District 7 update. Councilmember LaFrance.
I just would like to thank Mr. Lapine for having that grass cut behind South Platte Elementary. They did a very good job. It's not completed, but they did a great job. Thank you for finding the money for our EC. Mr. Eppley, we thank you for the job that you're doing. Every time I called, you called me back, you answered, so you're doing a great job. Thank you. Next item.
District 5 drainage issues. Councilmember Roussel.
Yes, I see Ms. Michelle left, but I'm trying to get some movement on the Engineers Road project. I spoke to DOTD at the Regional Planning Commission meeting. They had made a recommendation on a design change, which would save a lot of time and money, running drainage along Engineers Road and then cutting across without having to do the box culvert, so to speak. Yes. And so have we gotten any progress on that project? And then I'll go to the next project.
I'll have to check on that, Benny. The last I heard that the permit was going to be issued for the perpendicular crossing. That's the last I heard.
And engineering is 95% complete?
Yes, it's going to be an additional cost, but it's not much when you look at the change.
For engineering or for the project?
For engineering.
Because the project should be reduced in cost.
Correct.
Okay. So, anyway, I know we've been meeting on this. This project's only 10 years old, but we got to build it. And in my meetings with Mr. Dugas, I've insisted on having a point contact to be able to put a point on somebody wherever the project is stuck. So I'm asking for that again so we can make calls to whoever's got their finger on the project to get it moved to the next finger.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. The next item is the Fort St. Leon drainage project.
Director Beshel and I had identified 3 locations to begin. We're going to purchase some culverts for the Epsilon extension because the ones that we have are too small. Then they're metal culverts that we have to purchase plastic culverts, PVC. And then we have the extension down towards the lagoon that we will put in some metal culverts at that location. And then down by R Street, we are planning to put some culverts in and some fill.
Does that include the servitude between Q and R and also the side lateral next to the levee or coming from the levee?
The rear servitudes between the R Street and Key Street.
Q.
Yes, we're planning on clearing that, I believe, in-house.
And putting the culverts in-house?
That wasn't,
Yes, that's.
we wanted to get it cleared first,
I know,
and then
but
see what we could put
this
in
is the
there.
thing. I put this money up last year. We met on this 3 or 4 times. And so I thought we had an understanding what the project consists of, but it's not the same project, what you're telling me.
It can and shall be. It's just, we need to get it cleared first, get in there, survey it, see what's needed, and then we'll see what materials we have to do what you want. That's the plan.
I know, well, I want it to be unified with the whole project, so, because, you know, and I don't want to get into the details, we'll talk offline. Thank you.
Thank you.
While I have you on the mic, could you give me a time and a date when you're available to meet with me and Mr. Lawrence in Myrtle Grove? Whatever time you have, we'll make it available.
I'll get back with you.
Thank you. Next item.
District 6 update, Councilmember Newberry.
Well, I just want to let my district know that we are at a halt on Wilson Lane due to High River. The project came as far up as they could until the river goes down, and that could be as long as possibly August. Am I right about that? I mean, word is August, maybe?
We're still above 15, so it's going to be some time.
And that's also with the drainage in Jessup Bend, the project that we have money
Yes,
allocated. That's also on hold. I'm having to tell my constituents that any digging is actually on hold. So, but Ken, since you're here, is there any, do you and Don have any ideas on what to do with all the drains that are clogged up with sand? Is that a possible project to do while everything else is on hold?
Are you talking about the culverts underneath the highway, or?
Yes, either highway or servitude.
We can request the DOTD to come out and vacuum out the lines. I believe our vacuum truck is down right now.
How do we handle that?
We just put in a request to DOTD to,
Is that
you just had to give them
whose job
specific
is that? Is my
locations.
question.
I talked to Don about that
That
the other
Don's?
day.
Yes.
That's it?
Mr. Blank?
I'd like to thank the administration for handling a bunch of items on the punch list, cutting grass on Oak Road, drainage issues in Jessup Bend, removing trees in some of the ditches, that type of stuff, getting solid waste and the health department to work together to get an illegal junkyard cleared out. Thank y'all so much for all the help.
Thank you.
Could you add him to the list to give a report on it? Next item.
Number 8, approval of the minutes from the March 28, 2019 council meeting.
We need a motion.
Make a motion.
Motion
Second.
by Mr. Corrobro, seconded by Ms. Trudy. Machines are open.
Not too bad.
Will can stay in.
The vote is 7-0, passes. Before we adjourn, I want y'all to call Mr. Black and let him know how positive the meeting was. Motion to adjourn. Meeting is adjourned at. We need a motion. We have a motion by Mr. Konovich, seconded by Mr. Blank to adjourn. Machines are open. It passes 7-0. Adjourn at 3:45.